So good afternoon and welcome to the informational hearing on the proposed permit reissuance for Dean's Eggs doing business as NatureLink Farms LLC. My name is Laura Bubb and I am a Department of Natural Resources Field Supervisor in Fitchburg. I have been assigned to conduct today's hearing in Lake Mills, Wisconsin on September 10th, 2019. To assist with the hearing, I have the following DNR staff with me. Mark Kane, who's our wastewater engineer and the permit drafter and the regional CAFO specialist that is assigned to this operation. We also have Eric Struck over in the corner, who is another one of our agricultural specialists in Fitchburg. And we have Caitlin McLevy, who's our brand new, as of yesterday, agricultural specialist helping us out in the Fitchburg office. The hearing today is being held pursuant to sections 283.49 statutes and chapter 203 Wisconsin Administrative Code. The DNR is proposing to reissue the WPDS permit for Dean's Eggs doing business as NatureLink Farms LLC. The purpose of this hearing is to receive public comments on the proposed permit reissuance prior to a final decision being made by the DNR. I am asking that everyone here be respectful of others so that we may get comments from everyone. This includes refraining from actions such as clapping, shouting, or other disruptions. I have already handed out appearance slips for today's meeting. They are over at the table. If you have not filled one out, please do so now. Print the information requested and bring it up to the front of the room or pass the slip to a DNR staff. On the appearance slips, you are asked to indicate whether you wish to make an oral statement. Please mark yes if you would like to make an oral statement at today's hearing on the record. Since state law requires that we keep an accurate record of who attends the hearing, we request that everyone fill out an appearance slip, even if you do not intend to speak. In addition, anyone who fills out an appearance slip will receive a notice of DNR's final decision. If you have an email address, please include your email address and the DNR will provide the notice of its final decision through email. On August 8, 2019, the DNR published notice of this public informational hearing and the proposed permit reissuance in the Lake Mills Leader newspaper. The proposed permit provides authorization to discharge to the Monashaw River in the Monashaw River watershed. There are desk copies of the fact sheet and the proposed permit on the tables in the back. If you wish to obtain a copy of the proposed permit, the operations nutrient management plan, or other information related to the permit, you can submit a written request to the permit drafter listed in the public notice for this permit action, or you can search the DNR's website at wi.dnr.gov and enter the words water permit into the search bar. And Mark would be the permit drafter if you want to request that from him directly. This will bring you to the water permit application webpage where you can track the status of the permit and obtain other permit information. Today's hearing will proceed as follows. Mark Kane will briefly explain the conditions in terms of the proposed permit reissuance. I will then call on members of the public who indicated on the appearance slips that they wish to make a statement. Persons making oral statements today must come to the front of the room and speak into the recorder, which is right here. Pursuant to section 283.49 statutes and section NR 203.10(1) Wisconsin Administrative Code, this hearing is not a contested case hearing, so no cross-examination will be permitted. However, informational and clarifying questions may be directed to DNR staff. After the presentation of oral statements by all persons who checked yes on the oral statement box of the appearance slips, I will then ask if anyone that has not already provided oral statements wishes to make an oral statement. You may come up at that time and make a statement, even if you didn't mark yes on the appearance slip. After the hearing is closed, DNR staff will remain in the hearing room for a while and try to answer any additional questions you may have. In addition to, or in lieu of any oral statements at today's hearing, you can submit written comments today, or written comments may be sent to the DNR. If you would like to send the DNR written comments, They must be received by the DNR by September 17th, 2019, which is a week from today. Written comments should be sent to Mark Kane at the Department of Natural Resources, 3911 Fish Hatchery Road, Fitchburg, Wisconsin, 53711, or submitted electronically at the email address in the public notice. Written comments have the same weight and are given the same consideration as oral statements made at today's hearings. All comments received will be made part of the hearing file and will be considered by DNR prior to making a final decision regarding the permit. Notice of the DNR's final determination regarding the proposed permit will be sent to the applicant. All persons who have either filled out an appearance slip today or submitted written comments by September 17th, and all applicable groups listed pursuant to Section NR 203.13, Wisconsin Administrative Code. Pursuant to Section 283.63 statutes and Section 203.16 Wisconsin Administrative Code, the permittee or any 5 or more people may seek review of the DNR's final determination by petition received within 60 days of the notice of final determination. If such a petition is received, a public adjudicatory hearing may be held, and any decision forthcoming from that hearing would be subject to judicial review. Mark Kane will now proceed with the DNR's explanation of the terms and conditions of the proposed permit for Dean's Eggs doing business as Nature Link Farms, LLC.
Thank you, Laura. So what I'm going to do is just give a little brief explanation of what we've done in the past, and then how we got to where we are and what we're proposing to do as far as a permit reissuance. So this farm was originally permitted in 2010 as a large farm, as a CAPO, and so the current it's been reissued once since then, and the current permit goes until the end of 2022. So they came to us with a project that they wanted to do to bring another farm into their system, and also to add some younger birds called pullets. And so we asked them to submit after a site inspection, to submit a preliminary modification application on February 18th of this year. After we learned a little more about the scope of the project, and we looked at some timing issues, we decided to request that suggested that they request changing it to being a reissuance instead of a modification. And what that just means is that we get a little more time out of the permit that we're proposing. So this is a second reissuance, as I said. It's been the original permit, one issuance, and then this will be the second reissuance. So what we're proposing then now is a 5-year permit that would start on October 1st, depending on how we do with responding to comments and some other logistical things. That would go for full 5 years and would expire then on September 30th of 2024. This particular project is called an integrated analysis action under NR 150.20, and what that means is that this is a new site, and it has some requirements based on it being considered a new source or new site, due to the fact that they're adding a new site, which is the Don Hermann Farm. And then they're also adding some process steps, one of which is being washing eggs. The receiving water for this farm is the surface waters within the Lower Crawfish River watershed and groundwaters of the state. So currently, the farm has 2,786 animal units, which is essentially, is exactly the layers that are at the main farm right now. So that's the size they have been throughout this permit issuance. And I'll talk about their expansion in a second. So they have applied for a reissuance now. They've decided all to do that. So that application materials is showing that they will add a little bit of animal units, so they'll have 2,900 animal units when they're done. So a slight increase from what they actually have now, and that's because they're adding smaller birds to the new Don Hermann site. So that'll be a new pullet operation at the Don Hermann site, and just a little background on that. That was previously part of a CAPO as a satellite farm for one of the Daybreak Foods operations. It was vacant for a number of years, or decommissioned for a number of years. They're renting that property, they're gonna put pullets in there. So it's an existing existing pullet facility. They're redoing the insides of the buildings to accommodate their their cage-free operation. So it's a retooling of buildings that are already there. There's 3 buildings there. I'll show you a map of that in a second. They're going to continue to have 3 buildings eventually and populate those 3 buildings. At the main farm, they're also adding an egg washing and processing facility. So that's one of the changes to the operation. And then they're also going to change the way that they were drying manure. They were drying it in a smaller building. They're going to add a new mechanical dryer to the system that will then allow them to process a little bit more manure and do a better job of it. The other history part of this farm is that earlier this spring, that they had a runoff issue with some headland stacking sites they have. And so we had a notice of violation. We had an enforcement conference. We met with them and we've satisfied the requirements for resolving that issue. And we just recently closed out the case. So that case is now completed. So this is kind of a little bit hard to see a picture of, we've got 4 layer barns that have been there and it will continue to be there. What the changes are they're making here at the main farm is on the left-hand side, this box here, far left side is where they're going to build an egg washing and processing building to be able to accommodate the eggs from the main farm here. They're also going to be, this is their existing manure drying building. They're going to put in a mechanical dryer in there. They're going to add another solid manure roof structure for the increased manure and give more space to work with. And then from the dryer, it creates a condensate, so they're building a new 1 million gallon concrete tank, above ground tank right here. That'll take the condensate from the new dryer, and it'll also take any egg wash water pumped over the transfer line into this tank, so that'll serve a dual role for them. The Don Hermann site, and I apologize, it's a little bit washed out, but it's over on Highway B, just outside of Lake Mills here. It has 3 buildings on it that they're one at a time repurposing them with the new cage-free system in it. It had been a liquid system in its previous existence, and this big concrete tank was there. They have removed that tank and they'll be using a dry system. Manure from each of these buildings will be transferred over to a loadout area. The loadout area is on each of the barns is shown there as the small boxes. So all of these changes have gone through a plan and spec approval process by the department. So we've approved both the new tank at the main farm. I forgot to mention that. The new tank has been approved under a plan and spec process. And then also the new processing building and the transfer lines associated with that. Everything at the main farms, the plan approvals are all done and approved. The plan approval for the 3 loadout areas here have been approved by us, and then they will load the manure into transfer vehicles that will take it to the main farm for processing. So the permit requirements that we're proposing are essentially what we have in there now. There's a monitoring inspection program. What we do with these types of reissuances, we ask them to update each of the components that are in there, so they'll have an updated monitoring inspection program, which outlays all the monitoring and the inspecting, some of it's visual, some of it's actual testing. It's all going to be updated for the new system with the new site and those types of things. We also asked our farms to update their emergency response plan, so that'll be in the permit. We also have their sections that are in there are going to be there'll be a runoff control section in the permit as there is now. Everything is under roof here, so there's not a lot of runoff controls. There's no treatment or anything. The treatment in the operation is basically everything's under roof, so we don't have much of a runoff issue on a system like this. For manure storage, though, we do look at solid manure storage. Everything they have will be considered a solid manure storage. And this liquid manure is the condensate from the dryer. It's not actually manure. It's condensate from the manure dryer, and it's egg wash water. And so we combine those together. The minimum requirement is 180 days. They have 183 days, so that will be sufficient for meeting the requirements of the permit. And then they have way excess of 60 days of storage, so we didn't even calculate it. The new building is very large, so everything the requirement for permittees is to have some kind of manure solid or solid manure. They can also headland stack, so the number doesn't have to be 60. But most farms, a target is 60 days. But they will have, between their headland stacking program and their storage, they won't have any issue with solid manure storage. The other thing is we have the standard sampling points and monitoring requirements, and I'll go over that in a little bit on the next slides here. So the other important aspect of a project like this is nutrient management, and this farm has updated their nutrient management plan. It was submitted as a full 5-year nutrient management plan. It was approved on July 19th, and what it features is ability to land apply manure or this condensate of 2 million gallons of either condensate or egg wash water. So that's all accounted for in the plan. It also has the land base available to handle the 4,100 tons of solid manure that will be generated each year. And their spreading acres is 1,831, so they have a large land base. All the permits have restrictions in it for land application, and this is just a small subset of the rules of the requirements for land application. They have a nutrient management plan they have to follow. These are specific items that are in there to help protect water quality. So we have setbacks that are built into the system from surface water quality management areas, which is areas near streams and lakes. We have setbacks from wells, direct conduits to groundwater, and we have frozen and snow-covered ground spreading limitations. So I'm not going to go into what all the details of what those all are, just know they are there. If you want to look at the permit, you can easily see exactly what those are. But this permit has essentially the standard requirements that we use on most permits. So what I wanted to show you here, and it's a little hard to see, but they have this 1,800 acres spread out in different areas. There's areas near Lake Mills. There's some areas of fields near Stoughton. And then there's a couple fields over by Dodgeville. I have a little bit more detailed map to kind of show that. You kind of get an idea. They have a fairly wide area of land base for this farm. So this is the area around Lake Mills, and the colored highlighted fields are ones that are in their plan that are approved. So you can see where where the main farm is down here south, and then where Don Herman's property is. So there's land around kind of each of those areas. And then this is the area around Stoughton. Stoughton's down here in the middle, and you've got some land both to the west and also to the north up towards Lake Piganza and Piganza State Park. And then the third spot they have is over just outside of Dodgeville on the west, and then a little bit one piece up to the north. So as I mentioned, there's just the basics permit requirements are in this permit. They have a schedule this is the actual schedule that's in the permit with dates, and I didn't put the dates in here, but they're all consistent with what we do with a normal permitting action. So there's a monitoring inspection program, which would be due to be updated in a month. Their emergency response plan needs to be updated again within a month. Their nutrient management plan has a whole bunch of dates to it. One of them is to update it based on the reissued permit, and then every year to update the NMP so that we get a constantly updated nutrient management plan. And then each year we also get an annual report that talks about all the compliance items of where they spread, how much they spread, their levels in their manure storage units and things like that. So those are in the permit. You can see those. You've got the desk copies in the back, or you can get them online, and I'll show you where you can get them online in a minute. But basically, if you want the details, we'll ask that you look look at the actual permit itself. So here's a couple websites we have, and we'll probably put this back up later if people want to see it. These three websites are kind of ones that I would suggest you look at if you're interested in more specifics about what's in the permit we're proposing or things like that. So the first one is just general CAPO information. It's our website where we put a lot of effort into being able to show you statistics and information about CAPOs in general, where they are, some of the rule things like there's a lot of stuff in there. That's the first one under CAPO information. The actual proposed permit and the fact sheet that we put together for this project are located in this website, where all permits are, the WPDS permits are public notice. It includes a link where you can see the permit, and you can also get the fact sheet. If you have trouble with that at all, you can always contact me. I can get them for you or show you where these links are. But that's a pretty good website to see the permit and to see the fact sheet, the entire fact sheet. It also will not be up forever. It'll just be up until the end of the comment period. So then it will go away, and then you would need to contact me or go through one of our electronic sites for looking at other documents. Then the third one on here is a location where you can look up any documents that were submitted, the permit application, the plans and specs, the nutrient management plan, anything that they've submitted as part of this process is always going to be available on this site. And if anybody has any questions with that, they can ask me about it, but this is a site where we have it open for the public to get any documents that we have related to the farm, to the project. So then lastly, it's just a reminder of my address at my office so that you can send comments to me. There is a deadline, and that's September 17th, so that's a week from today at the end of the day, and we'll take comments up through then, written comments or verbal comments through then. So I'll leave that other one up for now, and then we'll switch back. So with that, I'm all finished here, and we'll go on to the next slide.
All right, thanks for the presentation, Mark. I will now call on members of the public who indicated on their appearance slip that they wish to make a statement. I'm planning on setting a limit of 5 minutes per person, so please try to keep your testimony within that time frame. And with that, Eric, did you have any other ones over there? No, crap. We will just get started. So the first person that's indicated that they would like to make an oral statement is Mr. Glassford. And then up after Mr. Glassford will be Ms. Monroe. So Mr. Glassford, if you would like to come up and have a seat and provide your testimony.
My wife and I live at N6481 Shorewood Meadows Drive, Lake Mills. Our house is close to the Daybreak food egg facilities, and when they were emitting very noxious odors from their N5502 Crossman Road facility, those odors affected our entire neighborhood. This forced us to move our activities indoors in order to gain relief from the smells. If there are similar noxious odors from the proposed Dean's Eggs doing business as Nature Link operation, a much bigger population could be affected. The center of the city of Lake Mills is located a mere 3¼ miles northwest of Dean's proposed plant. Among the municipalities that would be affected by odors, from Dean's Eggs proposed facility are the city of Lake Mills and the towns of Lasdalon and Lake Mills. According to the 2010 census, these municipalities had a combined population of 9,275 people. Today, the population is even larger. In Dean's Eggs proposal, they described a tank that measures 132 foot in diameter and has a height of 12 foot tall. The total capacity of this tank is 1.08 million gallons. Its contents consist of water from the egg washing operation and condensate from WSF1 in the manure storage building. This tank is to be constructed of concrete. Hopefully there will be plenty of steel reinforcing bars in that concrete tank to hold back the contents. It is a concern that the WSF3 tank be opened at the top. By my calculations, the open top would have a surface area of 13,678 square feet. That figure varies a little bit depending on what you use for pi. To imagine just how big the area of the tank WSF3 exposes to the element, imagine yourself at the edge of a standard American football field, and 28.5% of that playing field would be occupied by a tank of those dimensions. Because WSF3 is open to the elements, it could cause foul chicken feces odors to be spread throughout the adjacent areas. An additional concern is that WSF3 would be open to the local precipitation. The Wisconsin Initiative on Climate Change Impacts has predicted from now to 2050, the annual average precipitation will include plus 2 inches per year. Rainfall frequency and intensity will increase, including more rainfall events. Those that are more than 6 inches in 24-hour events. And increased precipitation in winter and spring will result in heavier snowfalls and higher groundwater levels. If the WSF3 tank could spill over at the top due to excess rainfall, then water contaminated with chicken feces is designed to drain down the Crawfish River. The Crawfish River joins the Rock River at Jefferson. There is no chance of capturing the contaminated water before the Newville Dam, which is below Lake Koshkonong. Probably that contaminated water would reach the Newville Dam in the spring when there is a maximum amount of water in the tank. Normally, that is a time when authorities would be keeping the Newville Dam open. To relieve the forces of the water upon it. If the contaminated water gets by the Newville Dam, it would eventually wind up in the Gulf of Mexico, south of New Orleans, Louisiana. Most importantly, the Crawfish and Rock Rivers are used by locals and visitors for recreation. No one wishes to fish or paddle in a polluted stream. It would be best that Dean's Eggs management should consider putting a top on the WSF3 tank to preclude the eventuality of a tank overflow and everyday odor spilling out of the tank. An additional benefit is that methane coming from the tank could be captured and possibly used to heat some of the industrial processes. It's my understanding that tanker trucks to spread the contents of WSF3 over the fields have not yet been acquired. A few years ago, I had a chance to tour the City of Jefferson wastewater treatment plant. Of great interest to me were the tanker trucks they were using to spread the water and manure mixtures on farm fields. Rather than spraying out the contents on fields some distance above the ground, these trucks were equipped with injectors that applied the mixture directly into the fields. Doing it this way, they avoided runoff and reduced odors greatly. The former superintendent of that plant is still in the immediate area and may be willing to help Dean Eggs management learn about these improved sewage tanker trucks. I thank the Department of Natural Resources for the opportunity to comment on Dean's Eggs doing business at Nature Link Farms on the permit number WI 0006-41603. Thank you very kindly.
Thank you. All right. Up next, we have Ms. Monroe and then Ms. Martin following that.
Hi. I have some questions. I hope those are okay. I don't know if you can answer them as we go along, but anyway.
If you have specific questions, we can talk afterwards.
Okay.
But if you have comments that you want to provide now, we can take those now.
Okay. I live at N6081 Zabel Road, so I'm kind of right between you, so I consider you a neighbor. And I guess that's kind of why I'm here, is to get my questions answered. And I only have a few comments that I'm going to make. In my younger life, I was a public health nurse, so that's kind of where my concern comes in. And in 2015, the way I found out about the avian influenza was when a white van pulled into my driveway and a bunch of people in white suits jumped out and wanted to check my chickens. I had a small flock of chickens and 2 turkeys. I ended up with 3 visits from them, and we kind of got to be pretty friendly with each other. And so, but the first, it was kind of traumatic. I raise a child in my home. He's 9, and he has asthma. And so he's on inhaled steroids and stuff. So I was concerned. We really didn't learn much about that avian influenza outbreak. It was very quiet. Having chickens, of course, I was concerned that, oh my gosh, am I exposing myself and my kids and my family to anything? So that's a concern I have. And I guess knowing there's going to be an open tank like that, I'm just wondering what's to stop birds and whatnot from dipping into that tank. And let's face it, you don't know the day of an influenza outbreak. If you get avian, it takes a few days before you start noticing the mortality. So there's always going to be a window there when we have that virus out there. And I guess I'm asking how can you make us feel safer and not so concerned about this? And I guess that brings me to the wash water. Where is the wash water in this tank going? How is it going to be spread? Is it going to be aerosolized through the sprinklers? I have a problem with that. That really worries me because we do breathe that. And then there was a recent study done by Matt Borkart, who works for the USDA, he's a microbiologist, that found that there was avian influenza DNA in wells near the outbreak. Maybe your property was one where they did the testing, but I know that testing was done around the 2015 outbreak that we had. So that's a concern. I'm wondering what's going to be in my drinking water. I know that when our drinking water was tested 10 years ago, it was 22 milligrams per liter of nitrate. That's already high. How high is that going to be allowed to get? I couldn't feed my grandson the water from there, and he grew up on our place, so we of course had to get reverse osmosis, which pretty much I think everybody in our area has. So I would like to know, and would make me feel a lot better to know what is different since the last outbreak. I know I've heard what Creekwood's doing different and stuff. I'm kind of wondering how you're going to approach that. I'm also asking if the DNR would start doing some testing for avian influenza in the wells should we have another outbreak. Not just the wells on the farm, but the wells that are further out. We really don't know which way these aquifers run. I've been told, well, they're underground rivers. We really can't tell where the water comes from. Well, then let's test and see. I am downwind from the main farm, and I'm also close to the farm on B. So, but my concern is also about tank odors coming from the tank. I get it. I live in an area where there's farms. Sometimes I wake up and I like the way a barn with hay smells. I'm not somebody who's like, oh, I smell poop. No, I just know how difficult it is for people who live near the large Creekwood facility, and I know you're not that big. I get that. But it can be intense. So that's another thing I have a concern about. But the biggest thing is just the public health thing. Where is this water that is contaminated by manure and hence bacteria and viruses? How is that going to be spread? where is it going to be spread? I'm just hoping I'm not going to have one of those center pivot sprinklers going across the road from me, because I don't know if, well, frankly, if it would be healthy for us to live in that kind of environment. So if there's any time left, I'm hoping Anita can have it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. All right, I will call up Ms. Martin to give her testimony. Is there anybody else that's here that wanted to give testimony that did not indicate that they wish to do so? All right, the floor is yours, Anita.
Okay, thank you for holding this hearing and for the opportunity to publicly comment on the proposed draft permit and nutrient management plan for Dean's Eggs NatureLink Farms, LLC. My name's Anita J. Martin. We live at 261 Pinnacle Drive in the city of Lake Mills. As was previously stated, the operation will have the Highway 89 main farm as well as a new rented satellite farm in Astalan, the Astalan Pullet Farm on Hermann Farm on County B. The agricultural operation is approximately 700 feet to the west of an unnamed intermittent stream, which is a tributary to the Crawfish River. An additional unnamed intermittent stream 800 feet to the east also eventually drains to the Crawfish River. A total of, if I did the math right, a total of 353,500 chickens is planned at this time, according to submitted documents. However, it appears that through this DNR permit, there is no cap on numbers, and based on prior county approval in the past, I believe that the numbers that were approved ran in the neighborhood of between 600,000 and 800,000 birds, so a larger number of birds may be possible. As was previously discussed by Mr. Glassford, the proposed plans include a liquid waste storage structure which, quote, according to the documents, could potentially result in the contamination of the water table. Both the main farm and the satellite farm were hit by avian flu in 2015. Ms. Monroe described the quarantine process, and I wanted to add to the fact that when the avian flu hit in Jefferson County in 2015, a total of 134 facilities were quarantined in the spring and the summer of 2015. According to the Department of Agriculture, Trade, and Consumer Protection, no state funding or reimbursement was provided to quarantine facilities in Jefferson County in order to cover expenses they may have incurred as a result of the mandated quarantine. Mr. Kane noted that originally the process was going to involve the modification of an existing WPDES permit. That was discussed in February of 2019, and then that was changed to a reissuance on June 3rd, 2019, because of the complexity and the additional location and things. It's my understanding, and I could be incorrect, that the county deemed, when this was brought to the Land and Water Committee and zoning, and I'm not sure I'm saying that correctly, actually it came to the zoning committee at the county level, for the livestock sighting, and it's my understanding they deemed that this was not a requirement to have a new permit. And I did question it at the time because it involves a new satellite and a number of functions that were not in place. So if that is a correct assumption, and if that in fact is how it was handled, then that means that the people that are adjacent property owners to both the main farm, which is having some changes, and then the satellite farm were not notified of the conditional use permit for livestock sighting. So I do want to point that out. It's not a DNR issue, but I still think it's an important issue to point out. Going forward with this expansion, manure will be hauled from the County B facility to the Highway 89 facility. This poses a potential biosecurity risk as wildlife lives nearby. The weight on the roads also means wear and tear, which warrants discussion. These concerns may not be within the purview of the WPDES permit, nor within the parameters of the ATCP 51 livestock sighting conditional use permit through Jefferson County and DADCAP. However, they are concerns. So the farm proposes to land apply waste in the following 10 watersheds. Badfish Creek, which is in Dane County, and that was the site of the March 2019 manure spill. The Bark River watershed, Lower Crawfish River watershed, Lower Kashkanag, you know the words, Creek, the Mill and Blue Mounds Creek watershed, Mineral Point and Soudan branches, Oconomowoc River watershed, Upper Kashkanan Creek, the Upper West Branch of the Pecatonia River watershed, and Yahara River and Lake Gaganza. Fields in the nutrient management plan are located in 4 counties. If I have the correct information, those plans have changed quite a bit over the last year or two. Dane County, Iowa, Jefferson, including the communities of Astalan, Lake Mills, Milford and Waterloo, and Waukesha counties. Municipalities which will receive land-applied waste from Dean's Eggs include Arena, Albion, Astalan, Christiana, Lake Mills, Linden, Merton, Milford, Pleasant Springs, Rutland, Summit, and Waterloo. 4 of the 10 watersheds are classified as impaired water on the 303D list, and that includes Badfish Creek, Lower Crawfish River, Upper West Branch of the Pecatonia, and the Yahara River and Lake Gaganza watersheds. At least, 2 or 3 of those watersheds have implemented watershed projects over the years, which involve grant funding. Mill Creek is a Class 2 trout stream for 4.5 miles of its length, and the DNR in past surveys has found a rare aquatic species in the Blue Mounds Creek and Mill Creek. In terms of drinking water, private well water test results through the UW Stevens Point site indicate that a number of the areas in the 10 watersheds had well water tests that exceeded the health standards for nitrate, and bacteria, including E. coli, was present in a number of places. In Astalan, Lake Mills, and Milford, in Jefferson County, in Iowa County, near fields identified in what appears to be the most current nutrient management plan, nitrate levels exceeded health standards for 35% to 70% of the wells tested. Is there sufficient drinking water available, which shows land application in these locations is advisable? New proposed concrete pads for use in transferring the waste and liquid waste storage structures pose runoff risks and require close supervision. Will there be sufficient supervision by the operator as well as adequate time for oversight by Jefferson County Land and Water and the DNR? We know a manure spill has already occurred this year. We also know that one of the individuals that appears to be involved in land spreading waste from Dean's Eggs, Mr. David Schrader, received a notice of noncompliance for not complying with the requirements as a recipient of Farmland Preservation Program funds. See Jefferson County Land and Water Committee, June 19, 2019 meeting minutes. The significance of that is that will soil health be protected? Will there be sufficient person power to ensure waste will be applied in accordance with permit parameters in the 10 watersheds receiving the waste in 4 different counties? Will there be sufficient staff at the county levels, the 4 counties, and the DNR to provide adequate oversight on land application? The ammonia generated by the birds at these 2 locations, some of which becomes windborne, has the potential to increase pollutants in local water sources. And I know my time is tight, but in May of this year, Wisconsin DNR Air Management Department considered documents submitted by Dean's Eggs Nature Link Farms and determined an air permit pollution is not required at this time. The permit application indicates mortality is currently stored on site and then removed to a landfill. It states that an incinerator, Fire Lake 850A model, will possibly be used in the future for routine mortality. If incineration is done, the resultant ash will need to be accounted for in the nutrient management plan. Unless state law specifically mandates that the DNR not require the facility to submit information pertaining to incinerator waste, Please require as a provision of this WPDES permit that the operator notify the DNR prior to the use of the incinerator and provide appropriate documentation to ensure compliance with all applicable state laws. Thank you for your attention and consideration regarding the above matters. Thank you.
Okay, this is our final call. If anybody else that hasn't already spoken would like to provide any testimony. Hearing none, I will close the hearing. Just a reminder that written comments may be submitted and must be received by the DNR by September 17th, 2019. The address for sending in the comments is up on the screen, and Mark has his cards up front. Thank you for attending this hearing.